Text us now on 2SKY. That's 2759. We take your calls now. 625-2759. 623-8255. 624-7729.
And it's 7:29 here on Sky 99.5 FM. We continue to put the spotlight on the police service, and Senior Attorney at Law and member of the Police Service Commission, Martin George, reiterating his call for a modernizing and a civilianizing of some aspects of the police service so that the police officers who are trained in policing and law enforcement can go about doing just that. Policing and law enforcement. And Martin George, we've got a couple of callers on the line. I'm just going to bring them up now. Hello, good morning. You're on the air. Hello.
Good morning.
Hello. Yes, good morning.
Mr. George, good morning.
Hi, good morning to you, sir.
Happy New Year to you and yours.
Happy New Year to you again.
All right, Mr. George, who determines if the acting commissioner himself is not performing satisfactorily, and what steps are taken against him as a consequence? Thank you.
That's the role of the PSC as per the Constitution. That's part of the constitutional remit to assess the performance of the commissioner and the deputy commissioners of police.
Some of the commentary in social media and by some observers is along the lines of maybe the commissioner himself needs to give himself one of those letters, because under his watch, crime has not exactly, the crime fight has not exactly been sterling. Any comment from you?
Well, it would not be appropriate for me to comment on that in light of what I just indicated.
Okay, all right. Hello, good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, see?
Yes, go ahead. We can hear you.
A blessed morning and a blessed day to you and Mr. Carr.
Morning.
George. You see,
Morning.
the system in this country, we mustn't blame our system. People make this system in this country. And when people go to court, in 6 months' time, a little case for a tire or a light or something going on for years. Why is that? I think the magistrate, the judge is supposed to hold these lawyers and pin them. When a case crossing a time limit, say no. You either pay this guy that wasting his money. The sorrow of these people of this land is the joy of some of these lawyers. I'm not blaming all lawyers. Some of these lawyers take advantage of the client, and nothing is hard to change. You put 3 lawyers in every police station in this country, and when a report comes, the police is not taking the report. The lawyers and them are taking the report, and the police and them going out there to the incident and take a report, and the lawyers, they come back, and the case was done in a daytime, 2 weeks time. Have a blessed and wonderful day.
Thanks very much for your comment.
I would just like to indicate, and I would thank that caller very much for his comment. There is at present the rolling out of the criminal procedure rules by the judiciary. So that would help to take care of some of the delays which are inherent in the system. So therefore, the caller is quite correct, and steps are being taken in terms of trying to speed it up in the same way that the Civil Proceedings Rules 1998 have wrought an effect of, increasing the efficiency of the civil section of the High Court. So the criminal procedure rules are now supposed to speed up the criminal justice system. So that's one thing that is taking place that ought to bring some relief for the public. And secondly, yes, I agree with the caller also in that there ought to be attorneys stationed at each police station who would be able to immediately give their legal advice, even in terms of the direction that the officers ought to, focus their investigations, because you must always be thinking evidentially in terms of what is needed to be proven to establish the case and what the court will admit into evidence. So therefore, yes, there is need for attorneys at all stations who would be able to guide and direct the officers in terms of their focus and intensity in their investigations.
We've got another caller. Good morning. You're on the air on Sky.
Yes, morning, Josephine and the panel, Mr. George. Now, the people are forgetting the basic principle of police work. A policeman can only act when a crime is committed. The point is that those two senior policemen who were served with notices of dismissal have not been given a chance to overcome their shortcomings by the Public Service Commission and the Commissioner of Police. The point is that they're trying to change, I would say, the rules of engagement for police. Police cannot act prior to a crime being committed. You can't tell me that a senior officer must go out in a community and can identify 2 or 3 young men who they suspect would commit a crime without any evidence and bring them in for questioning. That is not the role of police, regardless of what they're trying to say. The point is they're trying to make police preventative officers rather than to act after the fact. That's all, Mr. George. Your comments?
Can you comment on that?
Right. Well, as it relates to the substantive issue, obviously, based on what I said at the start, I won't comment. On the general principle of whether police can only be reactive, I would beg respectfully to differ with the caller, and I can say that there are many things that police officers can do proactively within the communities, even before the commission of crimes and even to prevent the commission of crimes. If one recalls the turnaround that occurred in the police services of Los Angeles and the New York City within recent times, it was because there was a definite change of approach where they actually moved from being reactive to being proactive within the community. So therefore, they sent out officers into the communities to try and gather information even beforehand to identify where your hotspots are, who are the gang leaders, who are the troublemakers, and to try to, quell situations before they arose. So, as I say, respectfully, I would differ with the caller's views, and I would say that the police service is not just supposed to be reactive. They are also supposed to be proactive.
Good morning. You're on the Breakfast Roundtable.
Good morning, Justice.
Good morning.
Yes, Romain.
Yes.
Yeah, I am Mr. George. Mr. Martin George, I agree with you there. You see, Hoover talking about, he don't know about policing. When a police is on the prowl and they think they're observing, and if you see somebody looking suspicious, you could even require and search them. This is the police prerogative. So when he's saying that police have to wait for crime to happen, there are a lot of things that police could prevent even before. Because if you happen to search this man and you meet a weapon on him, you could then apprehend him and lock him up for the weapon. So then he cannot go and commit the crime. So you see, people only just talking because they feel when they're on the radio they're talking. So, Mr. Martin George, I agree with you. The whole judiciary system in Trinidad and Tobago need changing, as you said, revamping too, because the lawyers and them sometimes they delay a case and they have people looking at the opponent. So when the opponent arrives there, they dismiss the case one time. These lawyers and them have to have respect for the judiciary, and when they're supposed to be in court and just can't tell the lawyer like if they're 2 lawyers are judged to on court number 1, I can't come on number 2, and the other people come into the case traveling from distance away and come in, that whole thing has to change. So I quite agree, Mr. Martin Zola, I respect you, and what you're saying is true. We have to change these things in Trinidad and expedite this case as quick as possible and change that, and then we will, the bandit, the who outside there will know that the law is upholding the law.
Thanks very much, Mr. Laramine. I want to squeeze in another call. Hello, good morning. You're on the air.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Mr. George.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Yes, I want to talk about something because we have businessmen will like to get a firearm license. And they blank them and they turn in and give them a run around. And Mr. Manning is turning not a businessman and he gets a gun license. No time at all. What was that?
Hello?
Well,
Yeah.
no, he's asking what causes that.
Yes.
Well, I couldn't comment on what decision the commissioner may have made in that regard, because I don't know what was presented to him. But I know the issue of licensed firearms has been a troubling,
ongoing,
Yes.
an ongoing troubling issue for many businessmen, and it's something that I think we need to have more discussion on, and not just take a knee-jerk reaction to it, because there is some merit to the argument that we ought to be scaling down or scaling back the arms race as opposed to escalating it, because we've seen the effect of it in Jamaica, where you saw the police arming themselves more and more and more with bigger and bigger weapons, to the point where they even have tanks that they deploy in Jamaica at in times of unrest, and accordingly the bandits armed themselves even more. So I think we ought to look at it holistically and not just as a knee-jerk reaction. Of course, businessmen will say, well, look, I need my protection now, and of course the current commissioner, I think his position basically is that he is generally very conservative in terms of, granting the firearms users licenses to persons in the public generally. But we have to ask ourselves, okay, you look at a country like Japan, which has the lowest incidence of gun violence per capita, I think, for a developed nation, of its size. And it's because they have limited the availability of firearms generally across the board, and they are extremely rigid with things like that. Then you juxtapose that against, say, for instance, the U.S., where look at the recent shooting in Fort Lauderdale. This person was a licensed, legal firearm holder who declared his firearm to the airline, checked it in.
And he was on board the airline with a gun.
That's right. Everything he did with that process was legal up until, of course, he committed his act of murder. But the point is, the system allowed that because he was a licensed firearm holder. So I think there are arguments both for and against, and I have always said that we need to have more public discussion on it in terms of where we want to go as a society. I, for myself, have always been in favor of scaling back if it can be achieved, but of course, it's no use scaling back the police and the general public in terms of their accessibility to firearms if you have bandits out there with more and more firearms. So therefore the police also need to do their work to ensure that there's a scaling back out there, and that I think has been the problem, because that has not occurred. We've seen in fact an increase, a proliferation of illegal firearms out there. So I think that's where the problem starts. So we need to tackle that problem, because if there wasn't that issue, you would not have so many lawful and law-abiding citizens calling for, them to be issued with a firearm. So
Mr. George,
I think let's look at the root of the problem, and if we can start to address that and deal with that.
I just want to squeeze in a couple more calls. Hello, good morning. You're on the air.
Jessime, good morning to you.
Good morning, Mr. Kamuto.
Edison, good morning.
Morning, Kabuto.
Mr. George.
Hi.
Mr. George, I want to make an observation here, and I would like to hear your comment on it. Now, whenever there's an enactment, comes a workload on the police service. Now, for example here, this proposed bill will be dealing directly with the human anatomy. For example, this Child Marriage Act, if it's coming to enactment, there will be a workload on the service, and it's human beings. So I just feel sorry for them. But we already have an understaffed police service. This country need about 30 or 40,000 people in the police service. But what I want to say is we will see that the police will get a lot of more work with this enactment. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Mr. Kamuto. Do you think that the police service needs to be as big as Mr. Kamuto is estimating?
Well, I'm not sure where he gets his source material from to determine the manpower strength need that he has proposed.
I guess he's
I know
just
for
looking
sure.
at the stories that we're seeing in the newspapers every day. And like so many other citizens are saying, maybe we need more police to deal with all of these crimes and so on.
Well, I know even now there are newspaper advertisements out with the photographs of
Yes.
prospective applicants to the police service. So I know that they are seeking to get new members in. I'm not sure it's quite at the quantum, in terms of what the caller just suggested. I hardly think so, because we've never had a police service that large, and I'm not sure necessarily that it may be something that we can justify in terms of our resources. However, one of the things we can also look at, and this will address the concern that your retired senior superintendent Johnny Abraham may have spoken about in terms of the qualifications. In the UK, they are moving to a system now whereby even to enter the police service, they are requiring that persons have a first degree from a university. So in other words, they are only considering university graduates as entry-level positions for the police service in the UK. That's what they are moving towards now. So maybe we might need to look at something like that, because what has been happening in Trinidad and Tobago is that persons have come in without university degrees, and by sheer dint of application, ambition, motivation, they have spent lots of valuable time while in the service educating themselves, bettering themselves educationally, qualifying and gaining things which, accelerate their promotion through the service. But I understand exactly the point that, Mr. Abraham would have been making, in that these persons will be more focused on their academics rather than on actual police work. So I'm saying, let's flip the script and start with the entry requirements and say, listen, get your qualifications, go and do your studies before you even enter. So therefore, when you come into the service, you can now focus on police work.
And I'm thinking, in terms of some of those qualifications, they need to at least have some exposure to psychology, criminology, and
That's
languages.
right.
And languages,
That's
yes?
right. So in other words, you change your criteria for your entry requirements, and you say, look, you must have a first degree, which would have certain, course components dealing with these areas, some aspects of human behavior, as you say, psychology and all these other things. Then you may have had to do a course in criminology or something of the sort. So therefore, once you have those things and you have qualified with your first degree, then you can apply to enter. Of course, it may severely limit the number of applicants, but we have to start somewhere, Jesse May, if we want to effect change. Confucius has said that the longest journey, a journey of 1,000 miles, begins with a single step, and we have to start somewhere.
And maybe even some rudimentary law training before they
right.
come in,
That's
because they
right.
are the
Yes.
law enforcement arm of the state, and you
That's
can't
right.
enforce something that you don't understand or that you don't know.
Yes, and you see, instead, what we've had is officers who would have come in with much less qualifications, but they've decided while in the service to use their time, apply for leave and study leave, and they go and they do their law degrees. They then get accelerated promotions in the service. But at the end of the day, the education has really more been of benefit to them than to their jobs.
You know, the area we hear about now and again, Mr. George, is that of the justice of the peace. Well, what are your thoughts on the beefing up of this particular area in terms of the expeditiousness of the system and so on?
I don't think the JPs in any way contribute to the clogging of the system or the slowing down of the system. With the greatest of respect, I can't see most of them actually are very facilitative, and even like when they are required to give evidence in court, I know they usually are there on time. Sometimes they're waiting around whole day to give evidence, so, and they actually, I think, have been quite a good part of the system.
Do they have any magisterial power as such?
No, but the thing is, there is the ability at a police station, depending on the nature of the offense, that a JP may be able to grant bail at a station.
More callers on the line for the classroom session that's continuing. Martin George, good morning. You're on the Breakfast Roundtable.
Jesse, me and Mr. George and others, I hate to come back, but a degree is totally unnecessary for policing in Trinidad and Tobago. You're just going to introduce a lot of delicate boys into that system who would be totally disengaged from doing real police work. Policemen should be street men, fellas who knows the street. The guys who have done well in the past never even went to a high school, much less a university. The point
But
is,
Dr. Coover, you're making the assumption that just because someone has a university degree doesn't mean that they don't have street sense. They can have both. It is possible. It is possible.
I am giving you my experience as a public servant after 42 years. The point is this, that some of them came into the service with degrees and I had to teach them how to write a memorandum. The point is all these things are not necessary for the police. The policemen must be basically trained, and men who are interested in fighting crime on the street and at a local level. The fellow who knows club life, he knows prostitution and all this type of. He does have to know it practically, but he has to know about it and be in a position to prevent it and matters of that nature. That's all.
Thanks very much, Dr. Coover. And I'm going to disagree with Dr. Coover there, because you can't make the assumption that because someone has university training doesn't mean that they can't function out there on the street. As a matter of fact, their university training may very well enhance and put a better understanding of what they would have learned on the street. Not so much, in George?
There's a bigger aspect of it, Jessie May, and the fact is that police work and policing has evolved.
Yes.
And we have to recognize that. When you're talking about the area of cybercrime and you're talking about, persons doing counterfeiting and all these things.
And financial crimes as well.
That's right.
Identity theft.
Specifically educated and trained in those areas, you will not even be able to approach the problem because the criminals will be miles ahead of you. So therefore, there is need, respectfully. And I do understand, yes, that of course, you need persons on the street, but you need police work to not only be footwork. A large component is brain work.
Yes.
Because you must be able to understand and analyze. That's where policing is moving to. So therefore we can't ignore the reality. We can't blind ourselves to that fact. And while things may have worked in the past, we must recognize that now the criminals are cyber criminals. They are sitting at home on their laptops and they, getting people's credit card numbers, and they are, doing shopping in Germany, in Atlanta, wherever, while they're sitting somewhere in a house, somewhere in Trinidad.
Emptying your bank account.
That's right. So therefore, we really have to step up our game in terms of the educational component. We would need IT specialist persons who have degrees in IT management and analytics. We need, systems analysts, computer programmers with degrees. So I think that, we have to recognize, and as I say, with full respect to the caller, in terms of, yes, you still can't divorce yourself from the reality of having boots on the ground. You must also have brains in the office directing those boots on the ground.
Even something as basic as trafficking in arms, ammunition, and drugs. There's a certain level of sophistication with which organized crime is doing this. I mean, the kind of logistics that they engage in to ensure that their products bypass the police. We need officers. Right. We need officers who are able to understand those kinds of issues.
Yes, no, you're quite right. You're quite right. And because the point is, you need to be able to track, say, for instance, the shipping routes. You need to be able to go online and be able to see, well, okay, look, this shipping line has been, consistently, meeting at this port, and they've gone off route, or these are things that you must have a certain level of education and ability and analytical skill. If you don't have that, no amount of boots on the ground would be able to solve those issues.
I'm going to squeeze in one or two more calls. Hello, good morning. You're on the air.
Hello, good morning to the panel.
Good morning, San Fernando.
Yes, there's something called resistance to change. And, we have a multiplicity of problems, and changes can be made. And some people, they would not want changes because of how it will suit them. So that you have to fight with that. So you need changes. That's my first point. My second point is, Mr. George, concerning the performance appraisal. Now, I heard Mr. Abraham said this morning that you do appraisal for somebody, and then the person above you might come and downgrade the appraisal. I want to know whether, now when you do a performance appraisal, I know you're supposed to sign it. Whatever the person is saying about you, you do it in front of them, and you're supposed to sign it, and sometimes some people fail to sign because they don't agree with the box they get. Now, if you put somebody in a box too, and when somebody, your person after you now comes and decide that, no, I don't think this person fits a box 2, so I want to put him in a box 5. I want to know whether they are told this. If the person who is responsible knows that I have been downgraded, I want to know and how often they do the performance appraisal, whether they do it 6 monthly, a year, I don't know how, and what is it. And I also remember when Gibbs and Iwaski were here, they were saying, Mr. Gibbs was saying that we have too many policemen. I remember he said that, so I don't know. I would like to have a little feedback on that, Mr. George. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
In relation to the performance appraisals, it's going to be contrary to the laws of natural justice and procedural fairness if you go ex post facto and change someone's score or grade after they've signed off and agreed on your appraisal. And if that is done without notifying them, without giving them an opportunity to be heard, and without giving reasons or justification for even wanting to interfere with the score in the first place. What we have seen most times when you have requests for reviews, it is generated by the officer who has been appraised, who may say, well, look, even though I signed off on this, I have since found out that, look, your process, your criteria were not applied properly. I was treated unfairly. I was not treated equally, and therefore I wish to have a review of the matter. In fact, quite recently, our tribunal at the Police Service Appeals Unit, as a part of the Police Service Commission, dealt with a similar situation where ex post facto an officer sought a review, but the thing is, it was based upon some rather curious set of circumstances. Mm-hmm. And upon looking at it, we felt that the commissioner was quite correct in refusing to accede to the request for a review. And as a result, that officer's appeal against the commissioner's decision was dismissed.
So I didn't know about the optimum number of police officers.
I guess the manpower audit is going to be instrumental in determining that.
Right, and that audit has not been completed yet. But as I said, I am not sure that we necessarily are going to see the escalation to the lofty heights of the numbers that were cited by the caller from Couva of 30 or 40,000. I am quite sure that we won't see that escalation at this point.
And perhaps it may determine that there should be a redeployment of officers in different areas, perhaps even the creation of new units based on the qualifications they find out these officers have, yes?
But not just that, Jessie May. One of the things that I have always raised questions about, and I will continue to question publicly, we see every day, I'm sure each and every one of us has witnessed the tremendous and colossal waste of police resources, where you see vans transporting prisoners, right, and sometimes from private security firms, these vans escorted by police officers, police vans, police outriders, and I cannot for the life of me understand if it is that one has contracted or outsourced this service to a private company, why then must we deploy valuable police resources every day, and you see them screaming, bolting along the PBR, bulldozing everybody out of their way.
Sirens blasting.
Sirens blasting to transport prisoners to courts all around the country. It makes absolutely no sense to me. When you think of the manpower just in terms of that operation every day, you realize how many police officers are engaged in things which, quite frankly, to my mind, ought not to be, their time ought not to be used on, because there are several ways you can look at approaching that. First of all, if it is that court starts at 9 o'clock, then maybe the private security firms can pick up the prisoners from 5 o'clock in the morning, and when there's no traffic on the road, you take them down to the court, you have them in the holding cells. All the courts have holding cells. So therefore you avoid the need for all of this drama which occurs where you see them, court is at 9 o'clock and you see them 8:45 speeding along the priority bus route, bulldozing and knocking everybody out of the way, with, as you say, sirens blasting and accompanied by police officers. Why is this? That alone, if you think of the manpower requirements every day in relation to that, that's a whole lot of police officers that you can deploy otherwise in your actual job of fighting crime.
Martin George, we're going to leave it there for now. Thank you for the classroom session this morning. It was fantastic as usual.
It's always
Thank
a
you, Mr.
pleasure,
George.
and have a fantastic day and a great weekend.
Edison Carr, Jesse May Venture, and Dr. Wayne Haywood on the Breakfast Roundtable on Sky 99.5 FM.